Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Today we are talking about why filmmakers don't succeed. Most filmmakers, I would say the majority of filmmakers, don't succeed. In the last episode, we talked about how you define success, how not everyone needs to win an Oscar, but most people, the vast majority, do come to filmmaking with some flawed assumptions. They stay in it for about, 3 to 7 years would be my guess. Then they go and do something else. Now, if they do something else that they love, that's great. Filmmaking was a path to finding that. But most people would like to be filmmakers, would like to have a creative, flexible way to earn their living. And people get into it and they can't stick with it for whatever reason. It doesn't work out for them. And as a result, they end up quitting, doing something else, and filmmaking for them was always something that they would have liked to have done, but couldn't quite decode, couldn't quite put the pieces together in a way that made sense for them. So today I want to talk about the 6 things that I think are the main causes for that. Who am I to talk about this? I have been making films now for over 25 years. I have found success in that filmmaking. I am able to be in a place now in my mid-40s where I can pick and choose the projects that I want to work on. I can work on my own projects. I can not work at all if I so choose. I have that flexibility because of the 2.5 decades previous of all the things that I learned, all the things that I've done, and by no means the most successful filmmaker in the world. But I certainly have seen, trends come and go. I have seen so many people come and go in this industry. I have seen a lot of the different ways that people make money and lose money in this industry, and have ended up in a place where I'm living my definition of success as a filmmaker. So hopefully the things I'm going to talk about today can help you, if you're just starting your career or you're midway through your career, find some of the elements that are going to help you unlock your potential and make this something that you do for the rest of your life, rather than 3 years out of college and then can't make it stick. One of the inspirations for this podcast piece was that the Filmmakers subreddit is full of people who are trying to look for a reason not to give up. Hollywood especially is having a really, really tough couple of years, and there are a lot of people, in camera departments, in grip departments, as screenwriters who are, basically saying, I can't do this anymore. What should I do now? And so I made this sort of as a response for, the things I learned on my journey. Okay, so why filmmakers don't succeed? Probably the biggest reason is that they don't build and maintain a network. They're burning bridges every time they work for someone. They're burning bridges every time they're on set because they think they know more than they do. They under-deliver and overpromise. They always think they're a little bit ahead of where they really are with their skills and their resources and what they're able to do. You will succeed in this business at every level if people want to work with you. If when they get a job, whether or not they're the client or the person who's the filmmaker who's got the job and is looking for collaborators, they need to be able to think of you first and think, oh, that person's great to work with, I'll give them a call. If you're not leaving people with that sort of impression, then it is an uphill battle because you're constantly having to find new people to work with because the ones you work with don't want to work with you again. I'm not sure. That can be, any number of reasons. I certainly have worked with a lot of people that I never wanted to come across again. People that didn't know how on-set protocol worked and, were working as a gaffer and then wanted to tell the producer how they should do their job. People who were runners and were constantly holding up the shoot, or like trying to get the lead actress's number, or pitching their own projects. People that didn't understand that if you're there and you're getting paid to do that job and nothing else. You're not there to pitch your project, or really your career as it stands at any given moment is the quality of your network, of the people that think of you when they have work, and also the people that you can reach out to. If you call people to work on your projects and they are always busy, it's because you're burning bridges with the people that are working with you. You're either not paying them enough, you're not respecting them enough, your projects aren't, you're not communicating well enough with them. People don't see you as a good investment of their time and of their energy. So some of this comes down to emotional intelligence. If you don't know how to deal with other people, how to manage their expectations, how to communicate with them, some people, some producers I worked for in my TV commercial days, if they were to call me now, I would not pick up the phone. There were just so much drama and so much stress, and they were never happy with what they got, even though it was what they asked for. I wouldn't pick up the phone. And there are plenty of people that I would pick up the phone for, but there are plenty out there that, either took it way too seriously or were just, a pain. So it works both ways. You need to be a good client and you need to be a good customer. You need to be a good client and you need to be a good employer. You don't need a huge, hundreds of people that you need to call, but you definitely need enough people to keep feeding your work. You definitely need enough people to keep collaborating with. Money is great, paying people well is great, but if you're trouble to work with and are always asking more and more and more of people, when those people are in demand, as good people often are, they'll turn you down. Or when you don't have as much money, like say you work with people on commercials and you want to make a feature film with them, as soon as you're no longer paying them $2,000 a day, they'll be like, no thanks. Whereas ideally, if you're working with people and paying them well, when you have a passion project, they should be jumping on that saying, oh, this guy treated me really well, I want to repay that favor. And the same with you. If you don't repay those favors that you've built up over time, then that person won't call you again. So it really is being a good professional friend. It is being professional on set. It is being no drama. It is always being solution orientated. I don't mean letting people walk all over you. I don't think that is a good way of using your time and your energy. And ultimately, if you let people exploit you, they'll continue to exploit you more and more. I mean, being a valuable asset to any production, so that when, I have half a dozen friends, collaborators, cinematographers, so that if I were going to direct something and looking for a cinematographer, not only would I know who to call, but I'd be excited. I'd be like, oh, I get to hang out with these guys. I get to work with these guys again. That's how you want people to think of you, not someone who is going to use the on-set experience to advance their own agendas, meaning a DP who's going to spend all their time getting the shots for their show reel and not give you what you need. So that's a good segue into my second point, which is most filmmakers don't succeed because they don't understand what filmmaking is. I can explain it like this. Most filmmakers think that when they have a client project, when they have any project, the mission is to make a film that meets their standards, meaning a good film. And that is not true at all. You need to understand when you're employed, when you're paid money, you need to understand, and if you don't, ask the questions to help you understand, what is it that this film needs to do? Does it need to make the client look like a hero within their organization? Does it need to, sell a bunch of stuff if it's a commercial? Does it need to educate a bunch of people? If it's a documentary, who is it educating? Where are they coming from? A film that you're producing as a filmmaker is a tool. It needs to do a specific job. If you just make it up to your standard of good, make it look like a Steven Spielberg movie or David Fincher film or something that you admire and you want to produce, even if it's beautiful and you think, oh God, this could win an Academy Award, if it doesn't do what the person who's paying you needs it to do, you won't get another opportunity with them, right? No matter, even if they're happy with it and then they go and put it on air, if it's a commercial or whatever it is, submit it to a festival, if it doesn't get in or if it doesn't make money for them, they'll find someone else next time and you'll have inadvertently burnt that bridge, even if you're really great at the interpersonal side of things. It took me forever to understand this, and once I did, my career was never the same. People who come to you are often really not as film literate as you. Of course, right? They're hiring you as the expert, but you can't then overwhelm them with, oh, it's a dolly shot panning on a long lens to a crane to, whatever. You can't throw a bunch of film jargon at them and make them feel like they're in your world now and they have to listen to you. You're building a tool that has to perform a particular job. If you don't know what that job is, you're flying blind and you will almost certainly not hit the target. But if you do know what that target is, if you do know what the purpose of the end product is, you can use your powers as a filmmaker and as a storyteller to help them accomplish that. And if you do, you'll get work again and again and again and again. It is mystifying to me that some people think film is a subjective, abstract thing. I'm going to just make the movie that I make and no one else can judge it. It is not. When you're being paid to make a film, guaranteed that person is using what you're going to produce to make money. And if they aren't able to, if the cost of your film and, running the ads or whatever it is less than the cost of making it, that person has lost money. No one's going to keep losing money to work with you, as no matter how great you are. So you need to understand what is the objective of this film that we're creating, and you need to find out if what you're doing is going to work. If that means experimenting, if that means testing, then you should advocate for those things. There is an amazing parody of this in The Simpsons when Homer starts Mr. Plow and he goes to an advertising agency to create a commercial, and they create this wonderful, like late 80s, early 90s, abstract, almost like perfume commercial. And they watch it on television and Marge says to Homer, "Is that your commercial, honey?" And Homer says, "I don't know." Right? That commercial, those people who produced it were using that Homer's money to win awards or increase their own prestige, and it didn't bring in a single new customer for Mr. Plow. And as a result, Homer would never have worked with them again. It wouldn't have run it again. Other people would have seen how badly it failed and not worked with them again. So if you bully your client into doing what you want, and it doesn't produce the result that they're after, you're dead in the water. That is not how you can create a career. Third thing that most people do that leads them to fail at filmmaking is not have multiple streams of income. If you're investing in the stock market, you put all of your money into a single stock or a single cryptocurrency, that can be, your entire investment can be wiped out by something that has nothing to do with you. The entire divestment can just be absolutely canceled because the CEO dies, or there's a war and you can't get the parts for that particular product of that company, and so your investment is wiped out. Same with a career. If you only have one client, or you have one skill, or you have one source of income, no matter how lucrative it is, you're more than likely that over time that will decrease and could be wiped out overnight. You know, the person who is your great contact at that great ad agency or that great company moves companies, and their replacement hires somebody else. Now you have 4 or 5 employees and a building and a car and a mortgage. That all goes away overnight. You need to, if you're lucky enough to have a good client or have a good stream of income, maybe it's weddings, maybe it's real estate videos. If you don't spend time to diversify into different skills, into different clients, into different areas of filmmaking, then you can be absolutely wiped out when the market changes, and the market always changes. So in my own personal business, I worked in TV commercials, then I got into YouTube, then I created a course with Canon Masterclass, then I started producing my own feature films with Devil's Fortune and Brooklyn Tide. So I had, at any given time, I'd had 4 or 5 different areas that were making me money as a filmmaker. And when one of them went down, the others could take their place. And as a result, the years turned into decades, and now I'm in my mid-40s and have a steady stream of income that's essentially passive from YouTube and courses. I still make films. I still like making films. I still get to make films. But if I stopped making films tomorrow and my clients stopped calling, I would be okay. I would be able to bridge that gap until I found a different type of client or a different ways to make money from the skills and the gear that I have. A fourth thing that I see filmmakers do that causes a lot of problems is gear. Yes, I have a YouTube channel that reviews a lot of gear, but most of it is pretty affordable. Most of the gear I review is like sub $1,000. I see so many people invest the majority of their income in new gear, thinking that it's going to get them new clients, that it's going to get them bigger opportunities. Once you pass a certain threshold, like once you have, a couple of professional lights, professional camera, some decent lenses, which all up are going to cost you maybe $20,000, and you can buy those over years. Once you have those, adding a wildly more expensive camera, more expensive lenses, more expensive lights doesn't really earn you more money. You may think it does, like going from the Canon C200, which is a $3,000 camera, to the C500 Mark II, which is a $15,000 camera. I wasn't able to increase my rates, 5x. No one can. It's the result that the client is paying for. And if you're putting all of your money into gear for a small upgrade in quality, or a small upgrade in ease, or a small upgrade, if you're constantly pushing, and getting more and more and more stuff, you're going to find that at the end of the year, you have very little profit, even though you've had a lot of income, because you've reinvested all your money in new stuff. But that new stuff isn't allowing you to charge more. It isn't allowing you to get better prices, isn't allowing you to make more money. All it's allowing you to do is feel like you're more professional, that you're flexing, that you have, I have this much and this much and this much. Honestly, the client doesn't care. In what we spoke about previously, which is the film that you're making is a tool for them to produce a result. If you make a, cool YouTube video for, a local cafe, they can run ads to their immediate surroundings and get people in the door. How much more, if you shot that on an Alexa 35 versus a Blackmagic Pocket, how does that affect people coming in the door to buy coffee? It doesn't really at all. So you have to understand that when you spend more money, only spend money on gear if it translates into not just paying off that gear, but into the bottom line, meaning more profit for your company. Okay, a fifth thing that causes filmmakers to fail is not saving money. This shocks me so much. I just heard a story about a guy who was a big-time Hollywood and New York advertising cinematographer. He was getting $20,000 a day, and he was spending as though he was going to make that money forever. When, he was no longer the new hot young cinematographer, people moved on to someone else. The strike happened. The economy collapsed. He had to sell his $200,000 Porsche just to pay rent or pay his mortgage. He was living a millionaire's lifestyle, even though he was in a market that can change so rapidly, and that honestly, the skills that he had weren't that uncommon. There are, probably tens of thousands of people that can shoot a commercial in the way that he could. Most kids out of film school could. They weren't, because he was somehow, seen as the guy to get, and he'd done Super Bowl commercials. And so, he was commanding this huge amount of money, but there was nothing that stopped other people. He didn't really have a competitive advantage. He didn't really have a moat built around that skill. It really was kind of the emperor's new cinematographer. And so when that dried up, he didn't have anything in reserve. He could have lived he could have lived a really plentiful, luxurious life on, $70,000 a year, saved the other $250,000 a year he was making, and basically retired after 4 or 5 years on a couple $1 million. He didn't. He bought houses. He went on, took private jets. He bought, $250,000 Porsches, thinking it would last forever. And as a result, he's now back, begging for the same work as kids out of film school. I just think that that's insane. If you don't save money, you're always going to be at the mercy of the market, and the market is often unkind. There was a great story about Arnold Schwarzenegger. His Total Recall is a great book, actually. He made his money from bodybuilding. So he was a bodybuilding champion, as everybody knows, but he did the clever thing where in the Muscle and Fitness magazine, he would do free photo shoots for the publisher in return for having a full page spread advertising. And in the advertising, he would sell these, he's basically his workout plan. He just employed one person. People would send $35. They would stuff some little photocopied booklet in the envelope and send it out. He made, I don't know how much he made exactly, but hundreds of thousands of dollars that he then turned around and invested in real estate in Santa Monica. And he also ran a paving company, so that he was essentially independently wealthy at 30 when he started going into acting. It meant that when people came to him with, the villain roles, the dumb bodybuilder roles, the muscle roles, he could turn them all down. He could say, nope, not interested. He never got typecast as a villain, and as a result, when it came time when he was big enough that he was, his profile was high enough, he waited years to get the starring role, which was Conan the Barbarian, which launched him. He is probably the most famous Austrian in the world, and yet he has never once played a Nazi. He had hundreds of offers to play the Nazi villain, the Nazi thug, the Nazi officer, and turn them all down. And as a result, he was, when we saw him for the first time on the big screen, really in Stay Hungry and then in Conan the Barbarian, he wasn't tainted with that idea that he'd been the villain in 50 films, because a lot of bodybuilders fell into that trap. A lot of young actors and big guys fall into that trap and never get out of that kind of that ghetto of villainy. They're never able to play the hero because people see them as the bad guy. So when you have your own resources, when you are able to say no to the crappy projects, you're able to save yourself your energy, your time, and your reputation for the things that are worthy of you. So when you're young, absolutely, you're just doing anything you can. But as you progress in your career, having the freedom to pick and choose your own agenda is absolutely priceless. And you can only do that when you save money, when you aren't living hand to mouth and don't have to say yes to everything and say yes to everyone. The last reason that I think most people quit or fail, and it ties into all of the previous things that I've spoken about, is the power of compounding. Over time, all of these things become more and more and more true. Like if you understand that the film is a tool and not a form of self-expression, if you build your network, if you only spend your money on smart gear, if you save money, all of these things, if you start doing them, nothing changes straight away. Nothing changes overnight. They all change over weeks and months and years and eventually decades. And if you're able to stick in the industry, if you're able to stick at what you do, more people understand what it is that you're good at, you get better at it, and it becomes this virtuous cycle where you're constantly building your reputation, constantly building your network, you're creating positive vibes, you're creating a bigger and bigger show reel, and over time things spread and you become more and more the specialist that you are. You become known for that. And I think most people underappreciate compounding. A lot of those people writing on Reddit had only been doing the job for 2 or 3 years, and they're like, oh, I'm burnout, or I don't know, why isn't my career progressing? It's like, it is not a year by year thing. It is a 5 year by 5 year, decade by decade thing. And, honestly, the only reason that I stuck with filmmaking is I had no good alternative. I didn't have the skills to get a job. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have, the ability to go in and work at an office. I would die in that sort of environment. So I've had to stick with this. I haven't had a plan B. And over the decades, something happened. I got good at what I did. Other people recognized that I built a network. I saved money and could pick and choose the projects that I wanted to do, so that all of my results ended up better and better. And there's a couple of great books on this, The Compound Effect, The Slight Edge. I think Jeff Olson talks about this amazing principle of small things over time. He talks about push-ups, like, will doing 5 push-ups a day change your health, your mental well-being, your body? No. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but in a year, 5 push-ups a day is a huge difference. That's thousands of push-ups, and you will see a result from that. So the same with doing the things I'm talking about here. It's not going to change overnight. It's not even going to change in a year. But if you have the right attitude, you will, in 5 years, see a massive difference, be in a massively different place with your life and your career. So that's what I'll leave you with. There are my principles that I've been able to, not fail as a filmmaker and succeed as a filmmaker. And they're the ones that I see happening time and time again. So thank you very much for listening. I will see you next time.